Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. I hope everyone had a great weekend. It's All-Star Week for baseball. We all love that. It's a fun sports time, the summer, and hope everyone's getting outside and just enjoying their summer. I mean, the weather the last couple weeks really have not been great here, unfortunately, where I am in Connecticut, but hopefully everybody else is managing and just having a good start to the week. So I'm excited to bring you guys another episode, and I'm also excited to introduce the guest I have with me today. He works for NESN. He does very, very good sports content, like Red Sox content, and is just a very knowledgeable person about a lot of different sports. So I'm pleased to have him with me on this episode. Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, Gabby. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to kind of join the NESN list. I know you've had my coworkers like Jemai Webster, Lauren Campbell, Billy Jaffe on the show, so I'm glad to be added to the Boston Balling guest list.
Well, I appreciate you tuning into the show. When I first reached out to you about coming on, and you said that you've been listening, I definitely really appreciated that, and I appreciate the support.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I was telling you, like off air before, props to you for making the connections and all the different reporters and media folks in the Boston area. I know like Boston is your team, and I'm sure a market, you'd probably want to be a part of eventually. So it's really smart on you to make this podcast and make those connections.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic experience so far. I've had some great conversations with people, and I really have enjoyed my guests. So I'm really happy I started the show. So I'm just hoping to continue to have it grow and just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, well, we did talk a little bit about this briefly off air, but can you just start off before we kind of dive into a lot of the sports stuff? Just talk about kind of how you got started in the sports industry, how you landed at NESN, and what exactly you do there.
Yeah, so I'm 23 right now. I graduated high school in 2017, and pretty much all through high school from like 2014 to 17, I grew up near a minor league baseball team, the Bridgeport Bluefish. It's independent baseball, and I did a lot of like media stuff in that league, mainly just for like a YouTube channel I had. And honestly, like the short story, there's a lot of different. I spent a lot of time in that league. Let's just say that, like, I was at the ballpark every day. I was even traveling to all the different teams in the league. Like, sometimes I'd leave school early and like drive to like New Jersey for the day, cover a game there, and drive back to Connecticut. So like, wow. I was kind of just like doing a lot of media stuff in that league for myself mainly, and just building my portfolio. Honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing back then, but it was just so much fun. Like, I was like, wow, I get to talk to these players one-on-one like the ESPN reporters do or MLB Network. And I was like, I just really enjoy doing this. So once I was like, senior in college or senior in high school, you're thinking about, okay, colleges to go to. I was like, oh, I could do this for a career. Let me look for the best school to that offers that. And Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, they were starting this Dan Patrick School sportscasting program, which was brand new. Hasn't started yet, but I really like Full Sail as a school because they're very like on top of things, like very modernized. So like the school is really focused on developing like on-camera talent, whether you want to be in TV or like digital or whatever. They give you the skill sets that provide that. And I've actually known Dan since I was little because I went to school with his daughter growing up at this like small private school in Connecticut. So I've actually known Dan for a while. So it's just like really ironic that he was starting this program at this school that I was thinking about going to. So went there, really credit my 2 years at the Dan Patrick School sportscasting for like giving me the skill sets and like fundamentals. Being a good, I guess just doing this career because like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing, but then like the school actually gave me the fundamentals, and they have a great staff there. And then after I graduated there, it's like a 20-month program. You get your bachelor's degree in 20 months, which is awesome. I love that part a lot. Nice. And then just looking for the job.
Process.
Yeah, it was great. Like I'm glad I didn't have to do like 4 years of college. So 20 months kind of out of there, and then looking for the job. And luckily, my program director at Dan Patrick School, Gus Ramsey, had a connection at NESN. He just sent my resume to NESN. I didn't actually like apply to NESN, but he just like he knew people in NESN, so got in contact with NESN, did the interview, and then just got the job offer there. So right now for NESN, I'm a content producer producer for them. I'll do some like media stuff. So I'm in the media Zooms like every day for like Red Sox, Celtics. Right now I'm doing like a lot of Team USA basketball stuff and like getting content for like our news shows for on the TV side. But then I also do some behind the scenes stuff for them. Like I'll create graphics, I'll do video editing. I'll even run the score bug during the Red Sox games, like the little thing on the left-hand corner that people see that you guys follow along.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of do a lot of everything there. Definitely the media side's what like I would like to mainly focus on. But, you know, I'm just first year in NESN. It's been good so far. So I know it's a long answer, but that's kind of the gist of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's good to get experience with everything, especially early on in your career, because there's just the media industry is so broad. I mean, that's one of the main things I learned in college was there's just so much you can do in this industry. So I feel like having that experience you're getting now to just do everything while you're early on in your career is really helpful because it's just gonna make you more marketable in the future, just having more skills and things that you can talk about and be like, I did multiple things, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's just like providing value to these companies. And NESN's like a good company where it's got the brand name, but it's also not that big of a place too. So I can do a lot there. And yeah, like it'll be really transferable skills, you know, hopefully whether I stay in NESN or just like, you know, wherever down the line, because this industry takes you a lot of places. But yeah, it's good to understand both sides. I think like even if you become an on-camera talent that's like your main job, like you understand like how a producer thinks, what the directors think, you know, stuff like that. That really does go a long way.
Yeah, and it's important to just kind of understand how everything comes full circle and how everybody works together and what each person's role is, because that just only helps you to do your own job better.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a really like valuable experience so far. I've been able to do a lot in this year, which has been cool. So credit to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And especially being at NESN, I mean, in the Boston sports market, I mean, if you're a Boston sports fan, that's kind of the ideal place to be too, because you get to work with the teams that you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I did grow up like a Boston fan too. And I actually never grew up like I never told myself I needed to like cover the Red Sox or like be in the Boston market because I don't know. I just like it would be like a dream place to be, but I never really set those expectations. So it was kind of just like funny how it's worked out this way, where my first full-time job, I guess you can say that big job out of college, is in the Boston market for, you know, a fan base and a place that I'm like passionate about. So it's been cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I really enjoy your content on social media and everything. So just keep doing what you're doing because it'll take you places.
Thanks, Gabby. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. But yeah, so there's a lot for sure that's going on right now in sports, and it's a really fun time to be a sports fan, particularly us Red Sox fans. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about the Celtics a little bit because I have not gotten a chance to talk about the Celtics on my show in a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some stuff going on over there. We finally have a new head coach now. And there's already been a pretty big trade that happened already, thanks to Brad Stevens. And, you know, when Brad Stevens stepped into his role, basically this role, I was like, you know, this actually could be a good thing for the Celtics, because if anybody knows this team inside and out and what they need, it's him, because he's with the players every day. So this could actually be a good move, bringing him into that role of president of basketball operations and being able to facilitate all those types of moves. Because I said, you know, he can address their immediate needs now because he has a pretty clear understanding of what those are. So the first thing he does is trade Kemba Walker, which, you know, I had mixed feelings about that before he traded him. You know, Kemba to me was somebody that I'm biased because I'm a UConn person. I'm a UConn fan. So Kemba's always been like one of my favorites when he was in college and everything. And I was thrilled when he came to Boston, but he was just injured a lot. So we never really got a full season of Kemba. And so, you know, you trade Kemba and some picks to get Al Horford and Moses Brown and a pick. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts were on that trade overall, because to me, I think the return is actually really good for having Kemba be the one that we traded for them. And I think that Moses Brown is somebody that is a little underrated in that trade package that I think could actually contribute in Boston.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a move they needed to do with his salary. I mean, that salary is insane. I mean, 30 million plus. So like, I think I mean, I guess you could argue like, okay, I mean, he did that move right away. So like, could he have waited, maybe even gotten something even better? But like, if you look at the other teams like available, like there's really not many teams you could probably trade for, like to match up with the salary. So like, I mean, OKC was always the target team. So that's kind of how it played out. But I think it's a move they need to do. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Like when Kemba was good, like you saw the difference, how that impacted the team. But I mean, it was every other day. You couldn't play him back-to-backs. You know, you had to rest him, obviously, in the playoffs. Couldn't play him the last few games due to the knee. So, like, it's just unfortunate how it played out that way. But I think they're also setting themselves up for in the free agent class in a couple of years from now. It's going to be stacked in 2023, 2024. There's a lot of big-time free agents then. So I think shedding that salary is going to help them more even in the long run than – yes, I like Moses Brown that they got back. I think he's a nice young player. Obviously, the Celtics saw it firsthand last year when he had that big double-double game against them. And bringing Al's obviously a great, fan favorite back. And, someone that can still play a bit. I mean, obviously, he had good moments with OKC, even though they rested him the second half of the season. But I think it's just salary-wise, you just had to unload on that contract and really give them some flexibility, I guess, for this offseason, but really I think in a couple off seasons from now.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that in a couple of years, they're going to really want to take advantage of that free agent class, because this is a team that we've seen have so much potential and just can't finish in the playoffs. And that's extremely frustrating. And, they weren't really fully committing to being all in or fully committing to rebuilding. And I said, you can't really be stuck in that place in the middle for too long, because then you're just going to be that team that constantly is good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to win it all. And, they had a rough go this season. I mean, there were a lot of injuries, and with COVID and just other factors, it just wasn't an easy season by any means. And I think Brad Stevens did the best he could with what he had. And I think that this season was just a lot of frustration in general. And I think going into the offseason, we knew that there was a lot that needed to be addressed. And I think bringing these two guys in that can hopefully help contribute defensively is a good step in the right direction, because defense was something that was a serious struggle all season. And I think that that's something that both of these guys can contribute. And Moses Brown, in particular, defensively, he's definitely somebody that I think could kind of help them get back on track, because we just saw a lot of inconsistency on the defensive end this season. And that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to see addressed. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with these two guys. But I think Horford, with his experience, is somebody that is good for them to have too, because that veteran leadership and that veteran presence is really important. And I think we saw an attempt at that with Tristan Thompson, and that was kind of the idea with signing him. And then that obviously didn't work out as well as we had hoped it would work out when he got here. I know my expectations were higher when he got here than what actually played out. So I think bringing Al Horford back here to the scenery and a city that he's familiar with, that he's already played in before, and kind of knows the Celtics system, I think is going to be huge for them too.
Yeah, definitely. My video goes. My camera okay? Sorry about.
It's okay. You froze for a minute. Hang on, let me try something.
Technical difficulties, folks.
Yeah, it looks like you're back now, but you were frozen for a minute.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know.
It's okay.
My Wi-Fi stinky or not, but
no, it's okay. It happens. Technology, right? All right, let me see.
Tristan for sure, defensively, and you just don't want Tristan, in my opinion, being your veteran voice, veteran
exactly.
presence on your team. That's why I was I know he's a tough But having Al back is huge. Like, he is that presence, and on the floor, I think guys will just feel more comfortable, have someone you can just look towards. Like, I don't think he's going to be in the starting lineup, so I do think he's going to be the second unit, but still, like, he's kind of like that face, like, you depend on, and that guy, like, can help lead the offense, and just defensively just is that presence. I guess there's no real better word, but I think that'll be those two are big upgrades over Tristan Thompson. I think that's a step in the right direction. So.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely a much better, it's already an upgrade from him, 100%. And so I think that they're already headed in the right direction, but I do think we see more moves. I don't think that this is it by any means. I do think as the offseason progresses, we see Brad Stevens pull the plug on more guys, because I do not think I don't think anybody's really guaranteed unless it's, Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, who he's obviously not going to get rid of, because those two guys are really probably the future of your team. So you want to try to build your team around them. But I think if you're anybody else, I mean, I even think Marcus Smart is a possible trade piece as well. I think anybody really, really can be an option. It's just that was the first move that he made. But I do think we see more before the season starts.
Definitely. I think everyone's on the table too. Even any young guy, even a Pritchard, all those Neesmith, they are on the table. I think Smart. yeah, he's a good guy.
He's one of my favorites, but
yeah, I do think Smart now is more likely to stay after this Kemba deal. Obviously needing the point guard help, but he has that nice like $10 million salary, which you kind of like. I feel like it's better to package him in a bigger deal, maybe later down the line. Now rather than I don't know, just like a one-off type of deal. Like, that's a really good like contract to have that you kind of like to have, so you can potentially use later down the line. So I think he's more likely to stay now. Ime has brought him up as like almost like a core guy with Tatum and Brown, which was a little surprising when he said that, but I think he's more likely to stay now. But yeah, I agree. They're gonna make some moves. You can't. Tristan's gonna get traded one way or the other, because there's too many big men on this team. I think they'll probably bring back Fournier.
For him anymore now at this point.
Yeah, there's no place for him. So
I think Fournier, I would like to see them re-sign Evan Fournier.
Yeah, I think they will, especially they kind of made the investment in a way, making him his deal part of that trade exception. So I think they would like to see it play out more than half a season. And I think he was getting a little bit in his groove, and towards the end, even playoffs, he was pretty decent for them. So I think he'll be back. But yeah, I am curious like what other moves they make, because I do agree that anyone's on the table, even the young guys, and they definitely do need to reassure that bench. I think that's a big thing for them.
Yeah, because depth has been something that we've seen be an issue for them relative to other teams. And so I think, like you said, if they can just sharpen up that bench and just have more options, I think that could really help set them up. Because at this point, we're looking at a team that is overdue now to win a championship with all the talent that they have. And so this is the off season to really, really fix this roster to the point where you actually could contend for a championship, because it's not like they on paper didn't have the talent. And even last year, they did have the talent to be able to go that distance. And then the Heat just kind of, they came out of nowhere and they just looked really, really good in the postseason. So that was an unfortunate running into Miami, and just not being able to come out of that series. But I think that this team is close. I just think they were missing some pieces that a lot of other teams didn't lack that they did. And I think that that's something that they really will fix this offseason. And I mean, the coaching situation, I mean, you mentioned him already. I mean, bring in Ime Udoka, who, has experience with assistant coaching with other teams, and he's kind of been around the league, and he's an experienced guy. And I think it was time for them to have a new voice in the locker room. And I think people put kind of too much fault into Brad Stevens' hands for how this season went. I think, for what he had, I think he did a pretty good job with, working with the team, and just this season, especially with all the other obstacles that went on, I think he did his best. But I do think that it was getting to that point where maybe a new voice would be beneficial for this team. And I think that it's going to be beneficial, because I do trust, I knew that Brad Stevens, when he went through the coaching search, was going to try to find somebody that he really saw as a good fit for this roster.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. I just think for Brad, it was like needing the new voice. I just feel like everyone's kind of burnt out too. I mean, they felt like they played like 2 consecutive seasons really back to back, going in that deep Eastern Conference finals run in the bubble, and then starting like a month later.
Yeah.
And this season, it was just a lot. And I think he was burnt out. I think needing a new voice. I mean, he's the only guy Tatum has had. He's the only guy Brown has had. He's the only guy Marcus Smart has had in his Celtics career. So I still think Brad's a great coach. I would not rule him out being a coach again in the NBA for sure. But I think a new voice was needed to just kind of re-spark guys a little bit. And I think Ime was an excellent choice. He's a guy that, what I like about him too, is had just so many different experiences, like as a player, role guy in the NBA, played overseas, played in the G League. So he's been that like no name type of guy. But then on the coaching side, being with Coach Pop for those 7 years when they won a championship, and then these
went to Philly.
A great experience with San Antonio, but then like almost a dysfunctional, complicated situation with Philly, and then you got just a new situation with Brooklyn. Like he's just seen a lot of different scenarios. He's been around different, I mean, really superstars: KD, Kyrie, Kawhi in San Antonio, Joel and Ben. So he knows how to manage those guys, but really like elevate guys too. Like Tatum and Brown, hopefully. And seems like the big thing for me is that they, from what I've heard, is like their conversations when they asked Tatum and Brown is like they kind of advocated for Ime. So that's what you want to see. You want to see guys pulling for your coach and, playing for your coach hard. And I think Ime's a guy that it seems like they'll do that for. And that's the biggest thing. So it's not like I think Brad's still an excellent coach. It's just, after a period of time, like they always say, what did Larry Bird say? Like 3 years for a coach is probably the most they should have. I don't know if 3 years is the right amount, but like sometimes you need just a new voice. And it seems like Ime's a guy that can be that for them. Is kind of, straight to business. And I think will be it was a very beneficial hire. And I was very happy about that choice by them.
Yeah, me too. And like you said, with some of the players advocating for him, that's huge, because if you know that you have players that genuinely want to play for this guy, I think that makes a really big difference. And I think that that's going to be really important to the atmosphere in the locker room and just that environment that they have going into the season. I think that if they have a coach that the players respect and wanted to be in that position, I think that really is going to make a difference, because that's a really big thing. You want to have a coach that is respected by the players and that the players enjoy working with. And I think that that's something that's really, really big. And I think it was telling hearing Tatum and Brown come out and say those things about him and how they wanted him to be the guy. And I think that Brad Stevens, this shows to me that Brad Stevens really has an understanding for what works for these guys. And I think that him stepping into that role and him taking on the task of finding a new head coach, he knows, the type of personality that he could see meshing well with these players. And so I'm really happy with that hire too. I think he's going to be really good for this system. And like you said, he's seen a lot. He's been around a lot of different types of teams. And I think that experience that he has is going to help him to really, take this team to where it needs to be. And I think this upcoming season, there's a lot of high hopes for, because when the roster is all said and done, I think we're going to see, some still changes, like you said before. And we talked about how there's probably going to be more off-season moves. And I think he's going to be presented with a roster that can really be capable of doing a lot once it's all said and done and everything's kind of set up and put together how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be something to look forward to. I know one question I kind of have with them is Brad brought it up in his press conference for Ime's press conference, I should say, is like asking the players like what they want in a new head coach and like what he could have done differently. And I know the other day on the Team USA press conference with Tatum, he was asked about that and he really kind of gave a non-answer. So that's kind of one like lingering question. I'm just kind of curious about. Hopefully, maybe we'll get that answer once the Celtics season starts. But like, what do they want in a coach? What do they want differently that could help motivate them to help get the best out of them next season. So like just something I was kind of curious about. I'm still kind of looking for that answer because Tatum kind of gave the non-answer when asked about it the other day. So, but yeah, it'll be a fun season. Looking forward to it. They still, tall task ahead. A lot of good teams in the NBA. So you always have to factor that in. It's like, okay, there's other factors besides us. Like, Brooklyn's still going to be really good. Milwaukee, Philly will probably still be in the conversation, even with their situations. Really
Yeah.
But, they should be competitive again.
Their coaching is good now too, though. I think that's something about Philly this year that really helped them get to where they were. And I mean, nobody expected Atlanta to go as far as they did in the postseason. I thought that Philly was going to win that series, but I think having better coaching, I think you're right. I think they'll still be in the conversation, even though who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I could see them maybe trading Ben Simmons, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen with them. And I mean, we saw how badly he performed. So I think he needs to work on quite a bit, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Philly. But I think you're right. I think all of those teams will still be in the conversation. I mean, Milwaukee, look what they're doing right now. I mean, they're in the finals right now, and Giannis is just putting on a show. 41 points last night, and just he had a 40 piece in game 3 as well, I believe. So or game 2 rather. So I think there's going to be a lot of good teams still in the Eastern Conference, but I think that the Celtics can be in that conversation. And I think the thing about Brad Stevens, I did find that in some games this year, I think he had trouble motivating them because there were games that they should have won that they didn't win. And I think that there was a motivation factor as part of that. And I think maybe having somebody that can just motivate them every day to win games and come out and just want to play hard. It's kind of like what Alex Cora does with the Red Sox. Like he has a way to motivate them to want to come out and win every game. And I think that the Celtics need that kind of fire in their coach.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Ime's a good choice. And, they'll probably benefit too, not having like 4 games in 5 nights. That was kind of crazy, this NBA schedule this year. Like I was saying, like for them, it was like it felt like a continuous season in a way. So they definitely did drop some to teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to, or make it real competitive with teams like, I don't know, like Washington and all that stuff like that.
Hornets, they had a bad loss against them too, I remember. Yeah. And that was a game they really should have won. But yeah, I mean, and even this year with it being a shorter regular season too, everything should be back to normal this upcoming season. And they'll actually play the same length of game, like same amount of games in the regular season too.
Definitely, yeah. So I think they'll benefit from that a lot. And I like your point with comparing, they need someone like Alex Cora because that's transition a little bit to the Red Sox, but like it's been really cool seeing like the impact Alex has had. And I just know like personally, like hearing him talk like every day, like the way he talks is it's just he's so detail oriented and he's so like on top of everything and just great communication and everything. Like there's just a different sense with having Alex around, and he's like everyone's friend in a way too. Like he's like Devers is like Devers called him like his like dad, I think. Like earlier,
I love Devers.
Yeah, and
it does seem like he sees Alex Cora as like his dad, which is really adorable, actually.
Yeah, he's like another guy, on the team, but like it's cool seeing the impact Alex has had with this team and how they are motivated each day, and he gets the best out of them. And like I said, it's just on top of everything. Like, this guy can recall like any game from this season, like specific like moments, specific counts, specific pitches that other teams throw. Like it's funny, like every time we talk to Alex, if you ask him anything from his playing career, he like can't remember it at all. Like he's terrible with the details.
Yeah.
But if you ask him anything from his like managerial career, like even from like 18 or 19, like he can recall specific games and like moments, and it's just like I don't know. I'm like always really impressed when he talks because it's just so detailed.
He can reference certain things that most of us wouldn't even remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like even the smallest thing, like honestly, the smallest things. Like you can remember, I asked him something about like Chavis like last week when they were playing Oakland. He like recalled the whole at bat, like every pitch that like Sergio Romo threw him, like what pitch that Sergio Romo threw Michael Chavis. I'm like, oh my gosh, like
specific pitch are you talking about?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. He's just it's been cool seeing him back.
I know. I love having him back. And I mean, that was the first thing that I said to people when the news came out originally that they were bringing Alex Cora back. I said, yeah, this is going to be a really good situation for this team. I said, we know he has an ability to connect with his players that you don't see in every manager. And I think that that's going to be really beneficial. And then they made all these offseason moves. And I said, yeah, this team is going to surprise people in 2021. They're going to be a good baseball team. And people didn't really want to listen to that at the time. But now they're realizing that that is actually true and that it is a good baseball team. And now we're more than halfway through. I mean, we're at the All-Star break and they're almost 100 games into the season and they're leading the AL East. So that's pretty cool. And I think, Tampa Bay still scares me the most out of all the teams in the division right now. I mean, I think that they're a really good team. And at any point, if they go on a win streak, they can pass us. They're only a game and a half back. So I think that's something to be mindful of, is that Tampa Bay is just kind of right there on our tails right now. And right after the All-Star break, it's Yankees, Blue Jays, Yankees again, Blue Jays again. Yeah. So that's going to be a huge stretch because you want to win those games if you want to stay at the top of the division.
Yeah, definitely. And we play Tampa a bunch. I think 2 series in August for sure.
I think we've only played them twice this season. Like I'm pretty sure.
I think we played the end of July after the Blue Jays the second time. I gotta double check that, but we're playing them a lot in the second half, so you get a lot of opportunities to hopefully widen the gap. Hopefully, if they're in that place. But yeah, I agree. Like it's been. I thought they would be good too, but I think they've even surprised themselves. Like I remember they're thinking like spring training is we're sneaky good. Well, now everyone knows you are good and you're probably better than you thought. Like we were thinking, okay, will they be buyers or sellers at the deadline? Clearly they're buyers. Like I remember like, oh, when we trade Adam Ottavino, maybe we'll flip him at the deadline if we stink. And obviously that hasn't been the case. So like, they've been really good. I've been pleasantly surprised by them for sure. I think Alex has been, if you had to name a team MVP, I think Alex Cora has been the team MVP, to be honest.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But I think surprises so far for this season, I think in the outfield, I think them not dropping off defensively in the outfield, infield's different because I know that they lead the league in air still. Infield's different, but I think
the infield still needs some more.
Not dropping off defensively in the outfield has surprised me with Renfroe. He's definitely been one of the biggest surprises for me. Kike having a pretty accurate arm in the outfield. It's been honestly like really no drop off in center. I hate to say it for Jackie, but really it's been not too much of a drop off. So like that's been a big surprise. And honestly for me, like I felt like I knew JD would probably bounce back from 2020. Xander and Devers put up numbers. I mean, these are obviously insane numbers, but the fact that they are really carrying this team and not having any production from the bottom of the lineup, it amazes me how it's really been that way, and they've been able to carry it that way for half a season so far. I think that's what they're going to need to address a bit. You'll get some production from the bottom of the order, whether that's in a trade, whether that's calling up Jarren Duran and adding him somehow and into the bottom of the lineup. But that's that part. It amazes me because it's been that way all season. It's been those three. Verdugo more in the beginning of the season. He's kind of been on a cold streak the last couple of weeks, but
he needs to get going again. But I'm hoping that the break is beneficial for him and that he can get going again after this break and when they get back to New York right after the All-Star break.
Yeah, they need a break. They look burnt out this last series. Coming off that West.
I mean, that's the thing was you looked at their schedule for this past week and you see the Angels and Phillies. Those are two teams that, based on how the Red Sox are playing this season, I would have thought they would have gone 4-2 this week, taken 2 from the Angels and 2 from the Phillies. And instead it was the opposite of that. They go 2-4 and they lose 2 to the Phillies and they lose 2 to the Angels. And, they just did not play that good of baseball overall, really, especially in that Phillies series. And I think, the offense was struggling, but you're right. I think a lot of it just comes down to they were burned out and they just really need the break. And I trust that they'll bounce back after, because they always do.
Yeah, I think they'll bounce back. I mean, honestly, it's like weird. Like that one, like Marlins, like makeup game, like really like messed with them, like their whole schedule. Like then they had to play like 18 straight, like a day off, and then like 14 straight. It's like
because they put it on that random Monday when that would have been a day off. In the middle of a really long stretch.
And they're on national TV the night before in New York. So yeah, they had to, I don't know, that day like kind of like threw like everyone off, like to point out. But yeah, like I think they need these few days and they'll reset. And honestly, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like they're gonna have almost like they've been really good this season, but like they might have like almost a different look in the second half too, because you can't continue with Martin having, going 3 2/3 innings every time out. Richards, I mean, he's not going to be in your playoff rotation. Like, he's not going to be. I know he's Houdini right now, giving up 3 runs in the first inning every time, and then eventually going 5. But like, he's not going. You're going to move him to the bullpen eventually. So I feel like once Sale's back, he's going to be in your rotation. Houck's going to make his way onto this team, and he has to. He should be already, but you're going to see him more of a factor in the second half, and then whatever trades they make, if they do make a move. So like, I think, ideally there's 2 type of moves they can make. They're on the pitching side, some sort of high leverage relief pitcher would be nice. You DFA Matt Andrees would be nice.
I cannot. I'm so over Matt Andrees. I mean, I feel badly saying that every time, but he is just not good. And I mean, now he's only been putting him in games where they're winning by a lot or losing by a lot, because you can't put him in a high leverage situation ever.
I know. Yeah. He's really, they keep these guys, like they give them longer leashes than, that's probably one thing with Cora. He definitely, and this team, sometimes they give them longer leashes than they probably did. Like,
that bothers me too.
Yeah.
He gives him more chances than he should, I feel like.
Yeah.
Danny Santana is another one that needs to go.
Say that again?
Danny Santana is another one that needs to go.
Yeah, and that's what my second move would be. Like, they'd probably trade for a first baseman. Ideally, it'd be a left-hander, left-handed hitting first baseman. I don't really know who's available that would be kind of cheap enough that they could get. Like, I know people said like Carlos Santana, but he makes like $10 million, so they're not going to trade for that contract. But just to get another maybe bat, maybe like a CJ Cron from the Rockies is someone like they could potentially get, because he's like on a 1-year deal. I think he only makes like $1 million, $1.5 million for the it's like nothing like that. So those would be like kind of the 2 areas I would address. But yeah, like I feel like you are going to see some different faces in the second half, which is kind of, it will be interesting. And they're gearing up now. They're gearing up for the long run. They know they're going to be in the playoff picture. They'll most likely make the playoffs, whether they win the East or go as a wild card. But they'll take a different approach, which is cool to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said. I think I did see something where Bloom said he probably is not going to make a lot of huge moves at the deadline, because I don't think he's going to want to get rid of a lot of those young prospects that he has now, because he's worked so hard to try to rebuild the farm system. So I think it would depend on who it is and what their impact would be and what he'd have to give up for it. I don't think he does a lot of anything major, thinking about the fact that Chris Sale is going to be coming back eventually. But I do think he does make some sort of move, like you said, for another bat or something like that, or maybe a relief pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't. He's not going to give one of these like high leverage prospects in a trade deadline deal. I think they should do actually kind of what like Dave Dombrowski used to do, like trade like some like 15th ranked prospect and like get some. I mean, did it with Evaldi with who's that? Jalen Beeks is the name.
I remember him. Okay.
Yeah, like whoever they traded for Eduardo Nunez. They did that with him. Steve Pierce, like something like that. Actually, a funny trade proposal. I can't take credit for this. Rob Bradford said this on Jason's podcast on the Locked On Red Sox. He proposed Chris Murphy, a left-handed prospect for the Red Sox, for Daniel Bard, which I would do in a heartbeat. I would love to do that. So like, I don't think that's likely, but like something like that is the type of move I think they should make. So ideally, maybe like a guy like people throw out Richard Rodriguez, the Pirates. I think a good one they could get for like nothing is like Daniel Hudson from the Nationals, because he's on the end of his contract that he signed with the Nationals after they won the World Series a couple of years ago. They re-signed him to a 2-year deal, and he's had a bounce back year for them. And I really don't think he's not going to cost like much at all. Like a low level prospect to get him. Honestly, if they want, they could like take on just cash too if they really wanted. Like they're fine, but like. I think like a move like that would be like a move they should do and would be beneficial. And then you replace a guy like Andres or a Yaxel Rios on your team, and just have a more experienced high leverage guy. Cause like lately we have been putting like a guys like Workman, and Workman's actually been pretty, I know he had the bad outing the other day against the Phillies, but he actually has been pretty good for them lately.
Yeah, he's been decent. Yeah.
So, like,
he hasn't been bad.
Yeah. But they have been putting like Workman and Rios in like high leverage situations. And Cora is willing to do that with guys. He's willing to put, give Barnes and Ottavino, trying to rest them for the long term. But allow guys like Darwinson and Rios and Workman to get more high leverage spots, like he did in the Angel series too. The day Evaldi pitched, and he did a couple days ago with the Philly series. So I think that those are the kind of areas of needs they need to address.
Yeah, I agree. And it's crazy because this is a team that really was not supposed to be as good as they are in 2021. I mean, the expectations were not to contend in 2021. It was supposed to be kind of a rebuilding type of season and just kind of playing around with a lot of different things. And so it's crazy that they now are in contention and they have all this young talent in the farm system now that we haven't been able to really say that in a while. And that's what Chaim Bloom's done ever since. I mean, kind of it started with the Mookie trade, and then everything that's happened ever since then, and all of the players that he's been able to add to set them up for the future actually makes it really exciting too, because now you have all this talent that you can pull in future years now. And this is a team that is not only good right now, but knows that they have some kind of future set up too. And that's a great feeling for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's ending like the roller coaster that's been the Red Sox lately, where they're up, down, and he's trying to, obviously coming from Tampa and just like widening that window. Like he's obviously not a narrow window type of guy. Chaim Bloom, he loves setting them up for the long run to be competitive always, but still having that flurry of talent in the farm system. And whether these guys are your future or you package them later in a deal for a bigger move later down the line, I think that's what he's setting themselves up for. It was really cool seeing last night too of them having the number 4 overall pick. And I know they've talked about, they never want to be in that position again, but it is kind of crazy to think that, one of the top records tied for the best record in the American League right now. And they had the number 4 pick and got, Marcelo Meyer.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Was the draft even, because I mean, I literally was sitting here and I was like, wow, this situation cannot be any better for the Red Sox right now, because they literally are at the top of their division, tied for the best record in the American League, and they're picking 4th overall in the draft. And the guy that was considered the top prospect that was projected to really go number 1 just happens to fall to 4 and goes to the Red Sox. I was like, this scenario. I mean, I can't even imagine a better case scenario. So then you go and you land Marcelo Meyer, who awesome. Like his talent is phenomenal. So you have him that you can put into the system. And then they took Judd Fabian at 40, who's like an outfielder from Florida, who's also pretty good and was projected to be taken earlier than he was as well. He was kind of projected to be a 1st-round pick. So the fact that they were able to get him at 40 in the 2nd round, who knows if he's going to sign? I'm not really sure if he will decide to or not, but if he does, I think defensively he can be really, really productive. I know his bat needs some work, but he's another one that could be really, really good longer term. So it's like, I mean, this scenario and having that 4 pick, I'd say it worked out really, really well for the Red Sox, because we know they're not going to be in that position again,
Yeah, definitely. It was funny with Marcelo yesterday. We were on Zoom afterwards with Paul Taboni, who's their director of scouting for the Red Sox, and honestly, he could not hide his like grin. He looked like a kid in the candy store yesterday, like just talking about how surprised he was that he kind of fell to that point, and just like
I was so happy.
Them, like knowing about Marcelo for a while now, because they recruited one of his high school teammates a couple years ago. What is his name? Keone Cavasello.
Oh yeah.
I forget his name, to be honest.
I remember when that came up. Yeah.
Yeah. But really, Paul was talking about yesterday how, like, yeah, when they used to scout Keone back then, really the conversations were brought up about this Marcelo Meyer kid, this shortstop, a sophomore kid back then, and just being one of the best young talents they've seen. So he's kind of been a name on their radar for a while now. But I think from what I've seen so far, like, this kid's got all the tools. Bigger shortstop, which is interesting. You've been seeing this more in today's game, like having like bigger shortstops. Before used to be like the small guy, but like you see now with like Xander's a bigger guy, Tatis. But like a guy that can still move too. Like people kind of compared him like Brandon Crawford and kind of Machado, like with his just like fluidness to his game. I think that's exciting to see. And then bat wise, they compared him to Corey Seager, like and a more advanced at his age too, just being 18. So like it's really exciting to see. And from like what I've seen, like his interview so far, like confident kid, kind of all business, not much personality, but kind of just like, get to business type of guy and just ready to play ball. So like, I think in a way that's kind of a cool scenario for them. Like almost like the Xander type of a personality from like I could tell from him, like all business and just play baseball every day, but like on the field, kind of a flashy guy. So it's like, it's interesting to see. I think it'll be fun for them in the future. Like later down the line. When we have the infield of Nick York and Marcelo Meyer. So it'll be cool. Good for them.
I mean, in a few years, this is going to be really fun to see all of those players up. And I know some people were on the mindset of, the only person I want is Jack Leiter. And they were super disappointed when he was picked second overall by Texas. And, you have to look at it as like, would Leiter have been a great addition? Like, would he have been a great pick if he had fallen to 4? I mean, 100%. Like, who wouldn't want a pitcher like that on your team? But after he got taken at 2, Meyer really was the best choice, the best possible option, I think, best player available at that point by the time they came around to pick at 4. And the fact that so many analysts were surprised that he even fell to 4 just says a lot about the type of player he is. And he was, there were a few players in this draft that any of them could have been picked number 1 overall. There's just a lot of talent in that top, 5 or so players in this group, and people weren't sure. I mean, Kumar Rocker even fell further down than I thought he would too. Yeah. I couldn't believe the Mets got him at 10. But I think with Meyer, I think people kind of need to realize that it's not just Jack Leiter or bust, because there was a lot of talent in this draft class anyway, and I think how they made out at 4 is really good.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was easily the most talented guy available, so you had to go with him. And as far as Kumar, like he dropped and a lot of people are surprised, but in a way, if you look on the flip side, that kind of tells me like maybe there's something teams know that we don't know. Like,
I was wondering that too. I was like, is there some sort of inside information that teams know about him that were deterring them from wanting to draft him?
And I can't speak too much on that, but that was kind of just like a curious thing. I'm like, okay, people are surprised he dropped to 10, but I'm like, maybe it's something we don't know. Obviously the Tigers talk like Jackson Jobe. No one expected that. So
I didn't expect that at all. Like, this was a shocker to me.
Yeah, definitely. But I think as Marcel, like, I know like a lot of fans too, like, oh, we need pitching in the system. And Jack would have been I think a great addition as well. But like, you can fix it. Like I said, he's clearly the most talented player on the draft. And if you need to package some of your position player depth later down the line for pitching, like I kind of said earlier, like you can do that. There's a way to refurbish your pitching, for your team later down the line. So like you got guys like, I don't want to say Jeter Downs, but like, he might be Dahlback, and his value's not the greatest, but I think you'll see Tristan Cassis in the big leagues next year. So like if Dahlback, like, there's still a lot of talent there, but like if those strikeout numbers continue, like it's hard to keep him, in the lineup.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing about him is he has times where he's productive and we see kind of glimpses of something from him. Do you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
those strikeout numbers are just so frustrating. And I'm trying to be patient with him and give him the benefit of the doubt because he's still young and is still kind of developing. But I mean, how long do you want to hang on to that and trust and hope that maybe it'll improve?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you see the difference when he is hitting too, like how much that changes the bottom of the order. But like, yeah, just way too many strikeouts. And sometimes just like, honestly, like not real competitive like swings, if that makes sense. Like, so, I mean, unfortunately, that was like the note on Dahlbeck too. So it shouldn't be any surprise. But yeah, but my point is you can package some of these guys later and fix that pitch, get your pitching that you need later. So like, that's kind of the answer for like fans. They're like, why didn't we take pitching? Why do we take pitching? Well, you had the best people saying the number one prospect, the best, infield prospect.
Yeah, I'd much rather take him, the best, the best possible player that you could have taken at that spot than just passing on him just to get a pitcher.
And that's what you do, especially in baseball. Like you take the best available player. And these guys aren't going to be like in the big leagues next year too. So like you got time. It's not like the NBA as much. Like I feel like maybe that's a bigger debate. I feel like best available versus fit, because obviously NBA rookies could, especially if you're higher up, like you play for your team, like you contribute, where these guys are going to be 3 years away, most likely. Probably him a little shorter, but like, like average like 3 years. So it's like not
average.
tomorrow.
It won't be probably till like 2024 or so realistically that we're actually seeing them up here.
Yeah. So I think they made the right move and, good for them.
I think so too. I was surprised that Henry Davis went 1 for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming at all. I was really happy for him. I mean, that's an awesome moment to be picked first overall, but I don't think anybody would have predicted that that's who they would have gone with at 1.
No, I didn't see that at all coming. I think no one did. So not too much more to speak on that. I actually thought the Red Sox might potentially choose him because if Leiter was off the board, which kind of expected, but I thought they might actually go with Henry Davis. I know he worked out here at Fenway last week when they brought some of the prospects in and invited. So, but yeah, definitely a surprise to see Henry Davis go number 1. But obviously, I guess they did their research. They know something that we don't, or like something about him that we haven't people haven't really realized. So
yeah, I enjoyed watching it though, and I was so excited because I try to tell people, no matter who they get at 4, it's going to be somebody that's really good, because there's quite a few players in this draft class that are worthy of going number 1 in another season. You know what I mean? Like in another draft class, like there's a lot of number 1 overall pick caliber players. So I think whoever they go with at 4, we know it's going to be somebody that's good.
Yeah. This was a really good draft. And even like there was a lot of good high school shortstop besides Meyer, like Lawler was another big name that I think is going to be a really good player too. So like there was a lot of options in this draft. So that's why it was kind of one of the more anticipated drafts I think in a while. But
a lot of shortstops drafted in round 1 too. So that was
still shortstop.
Yeah, that was interesting. I guess a lot of teams want those shortstops, but
I know. Well, granted, teams like change up, have guys change positions sometimes. I don't know if Meyer will change positions. They kind of Paul Taboni talked about yesterday. He was asked about it. He's like, do you think he'll stay at shortstop? And he actually kind of gave a definitive yes, which I was a little surprised about. But usually in these drafts, like guys change positions later down.
Yeah, I mean, like he's somebody like maybe we possibly down the road see them move him to second base. Like I wouldn't rule out any of those possibilities because it just happens. People do change positions, like that's just part of the game. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, no, it was definitely a plethora of high school elite, shortstop. So
yeah, I look at these kids and I'm like, the fact that you're 18 years old and you're this good at baseball is just amazing. I mean, what am I doing with my life?
I don't like the fact that I'm older than these guys now. That's the weird part to me.
18-year-olds
draft kids, and even like when big league guys get called up, I'm like, ooh, I don't like that now. I don't like that transition. When you
feel like these kids that are like 22 and getting called up to the majors, and I'm like sitting here like, yeah, these guys are younger than me, and here's what I'm doing with my
life. Oh my God.
Whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling being a Red Sox fan right now, knowing that you're probably going to contend in 2021 and you're likely going to make the playoffs unless you just start losing a bunch of games in the second half, which I don't think that they will. But I think whether they get a wild card spot or they win the division, they should be in the playoffs. So it's really exciting knowing that on top of what you have set up for the future now too. And I think Chaim Bloom, I mean, what he's done so far in these few years he's been here has been great. I mean, I love a lot of the moves that he's made, and people were he was taking a lot of heat for the Mookie trade, but it really was more kind of the ownership that was initiating that, and he took a lot of heat for that, and people were like, oh no, like why would you get rid of somebody with that caliber talent? Which I understand that side of the argument. I mean, it's Mookie Betts, but at the same time, I think for the long term, it's what needed to happen, because I think that they're much better set up for the future now, and they were able to go out and get some of these young guys because of that move. And had that move not happened, I think, we would still be, the farm system really wouldn't be in as good of a place as it is now.
Yeah, well, I think Hines said it in like interview once. He's like, last year, Mookie, if they had kept Mookie for last year, like he would have been watching on his couch to the World Series. So they weren't in a position to be competitive.
They probably would be in the same place, because in 2019 when he was still there,
they didn't make the playoffs.
They weren't that great. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of falls on Heim, even though those conversations definitely happened before he came, but he is like kind of the face for it, because that had to be his first move. And I think he knew that too. Like, yeah, you're gonna kind of be stuck with that. That you're the guy that traded Mookie Betts. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, like he's just changing like the narrative, how they've been lately. Like I said, lessening that up and down and really trying to make this a consistent team year in, year out. And I think they are on the right path. And I'm happy to be compared to what the Tampa Bay Rays have been doing. I'm always like, why are people like upset about that comparison? Like,
people get so mad about that. And I'm like, why? The Rays always somehow find a way to actually be a good team, and nobody understands what that strategy is exactly, but it works for them. Yeah.
So he's been doing that, and it's been cool seeing some of the underrated moves, and he's been able to, pull off like the Pivetta move, obviously last year. And
I love Pivetta.
Yeah, and I mean, even something like super small, like trading like Chris Moz and Jeffrey Springs for like this Ronaldo Hernandez guy that's apparently like was one of the Rays' better prospects, that's like kind of killing it in Double-A right now. Like super small stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like it's
he's cool thinking about the long term. He's thinking about the future. And it's obvious that that's what he's doing. It was obvious in a lot of the moves that he made, and they were at the point where they did need to start thinking about that, because they did not really have much of a farm system at all. And I think a lot of the moves he's making are good for the future of the franchise, and that's kind of more what he's focused on, which is good.
Yeah. So like, credit to them. It's kind of funny, like Danny Ainge used to have like that don't trade with Danny Ainge. Well, it might be like, don't trade with Chaim Bloom and BOH, with the Red Sox. So like, might develop that reputation. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to their future, but I'm also really looking forward to this next half of the season and what happens here. I mean, I'm really happy for the possibility that the Yankees might not make the playoffs this year. I think I've enjoyed watching them struggle. I think because I mean, they were a team that was definitely one of the favorites to win the American League and go to the World Series before the season started. I mean, I kind of thought that too. I thought the Yankees were going to be the team to beat in the American League, but we're seeing a lot of holes with them too. And so if the Red Sox beat up on them after the All-Star break, like we've done the first two series this year that we've played them, then the Yankees will have a really, really hard time crawling back in.
Yeah, definitely. It's just weird, like kind of their roster construction too. Like Brian Cashman, like, why is there no left-handed hitters in like this Yankees lineup? Like, you got a super short right field porch. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Why are you re-signing Brett? Like, I know Brett Gardner's been a Yankee forever, but he's not. I mean, I think isn't he going to retire after this year? Like, he's just not a major league caliber player. Like there's just like a lot of questionable moves like that. But also like, yeah, you see the difference. Like, they still have some talented players, but just like how different like like a team culture, like clubhouse culture.
Yeah,
like,
I've said that
how much of an
Their
impact that really is. And I mean, Red Sox actually had like a lot of the same guys, obviously like last year, like Xander Devers, JD, they're all on the team last year. But like you see a guy like Cora, the impact that he has and like how he's able to get the best out of guys. And obviously, I think for the Yankees, it is more like Brian Cashman's fault than anything. But like, Boone might not be the right guy for them. And you kind of see the impact, like how that can have on a team. And yeah, that's just not their year, obviously. And you can really put them out of the picture. The Red Sox at least have a chance to do that with this 4-game series coming up. And, the other times they face them the rest of this way. But yeah.
Yeah, because if the Red Sox take 3 of 4 from the Yankees in this upcoming series right after the All-Star break, then that would put the Yankees pretty far out. And at that point, it would be kind of difficult for them. They'd have to go on a serious win streak to have a chance of kind of crawling back in.
Yeah. So for sure. So I think it's really going to be Red Sox, Rays, as the two teams up top, kind of fighting out these last couple months. And we'll see, Rays, like you said, it's hard to doubt the Rays. And I do think the Glasnow injury was a big deal for them, a big blow, but
it's just sad.
You can't count them out. So I like a lot of the players they have. I love offensively. I love Brandon Lau. I love Joey Wendell. I like a lot of the players that they have. Wander Franco obviously is kind of a spark for them. It's
gonna be exciting,
yeah. Obviously, he had that home run in his debut against the Red Sox. So,
I couldn't believe that, but
yeah, they're a good team. But it'll be exciting to see that. We'll be seeing Red Sox probably in postseason baseball.
And I'd like to win the division because I can't. I hate that one game playoff. I don't like that one game wild card playoff. So that's why winning the division would be ideal.
Definitely, yeah, I know. And Red Sox haven't been in that situation before, so it would be tough. Those one game playoffs are tricky, for sure. But
I know, one game you have to play your best baseball, or you're out.
Yeah. I do think kind of like right now the main team for them will be like if they have to face Houston eventually, because Houston's kind of had their number, and
they've struggled against the Astros this season.
Yeah, so I think that's like the real like main team that they're probably having their eye out. Like eventually we'll probably have to play them if we make a deep playoff run. Oakland's obviously giving them a hard time too. So I think those two teams will be like, if they make the playoffs, like, okay, who do I have to really keep an eye out? But like Astros especially, like, okay, if we're going to go far in this playoffs, like they've had our number all year, like that'll be the team we really need to be able to match up with and beat. So
yeah, I agree with that for sure. It'll be exciting to see how everything plays out, but it's just the Red Sox future is bright, and I love that too. So it should be a great rest of the season and just a great future coming up, which is great. But I really appreciate you joining me on the show. This was great. I had I loved our conversation. Everyone please check out his content, follow him on social media. He does a really good job covering the Boston teams and his NESN content as well. He's working hard every day. So I definitely appreciate you joining me, and everybody, thanks for tuning in week to week to Boston Balling. You all know where to find it. I appreciate everyone's constant support, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their week. Bye, everyone.